Hello, this is Jeff, aka Godless Scummer. This is a warning that some of what will be discussed in this stream we will be covering some quite inflammatory rhetoric. You've been warned, basically. Let's begin.
With a group of lawyers. We are collating all that. At the Nuremberg trials, the doctors and nurses stood trial and they hung. If you are a doctor or a nurse, now is the time to get off that bus. Get off it and stand with us, the people. All around the world, they are rising. Ask those there been any deaths. Ask them what is in it.
And those were the words of Kate Shemirani yesterday in London at a mass rally for so-called medical freedom. And it beggars belief, doesn't it, that in a little over a year and a half since this pandemic begun, we have gone from going outside and clapping for our healthcare workers to having someone be applauded in Trafalgar Square yesterday for making comparisons between our health doctors and nurses and Nazi war criminals. How the fuck have we got to this point? Now, I haven't really got anything laid out. This is just a rant today. You could probably just tell from my demeanor that I am just wanting to get some of this shit off my chest. Because this shit's gone. It's getting unbelievable now. I'm gonna say what I've got to say, and then if anyone wants to come in, I know you, and if you've got anything to say on this, feel free to DM me on Twitter. And you're welcome to come in and have your say. So lockdown and restrictions in England ended last Monday. There's a lot of debate about whether they should have been ended. I'm of the school of thought that this was too soon, and this was not the right time, and we needed to get many more people vaccinated before we've done this. But ever since we come out, the very first day, we had anti-lockdown protests in London where police officers were attacked. There was some quite inflammatory rhetoric around Boris Johnson. Now, I've got to be honest, normally as a bit of a left-winger that I am, I'm normally quite in favour of anti-Boris and anti-police kind of things. And I'm not going to defend Boris, but some of the abuse hurled at the police was unreasonable. And this is weird. Me, I feel strange saying that, but it was when they're being yelled at and for having abuse hurled at them just because they were wearing masks. Yesterday, we saw this thing in Trafalgar Square, which I'll get onto in a minute. But there was protests across the world. France, Australia. I know about. I think Italy, and I'm guessing the United States as well. But I'm mainly focusing on what happened in the UK yesterday. In Manchester, a COVID testing centre was attacked. They tried to storm this place. And then we had this rally yesterday in London, where I just played you that clip from Kate Shemarami, a former nurse who was basically fired and had her license from that profession revoked for spreading misinformation about this. A vile anti-Semite who's has preached things such as the protocols of the learned elders of Zion's, and has also linked the pandemic to satanic cults. And this person is on a stage in London yesterday in front of thousands of people. She wasn't the only speaker. Katie Hopkins was a speaker. Katie Hopkins, we don't need to go too much into her past. I think we all know it. But she was kicked out of Australia last week. She was supposed to be appearing on their version of Celebrity Big Brother, which I didn't even realize Celebrity Big Brother was still a thing. It was kicked out after very blatantly, even videoing herself, blatantly flouting the lockdown restrictions in Australia and bragging about this on her social media. We have Piers Corbyn, sorry, not Tommy Corbyn, Piers Corbyn, brother of the former Labour leader, who's also bought into a lot of this conspiracy theorist stuff. David Icke was one of the speakers. And do I really even need to get in to David Icke, one of the biggest peddlers of conspiracy nonsense on the planet? And how is it? And I don't have the answer to this question, but if someone could tell me, how have we got to this stage where that sort of rhetoric is being cheered by thousands of people in Trafalgar Square? Because it beggars fucking belief. I'd like to think this is not a majority of the people that hold in this country that hold those views. I don't think it is. But this is words fail me for that right now. I've been trying to think of what to say for hours before going live, and now I've gone live, I'm still too fucking pissed off to talk about this shit. I want to say something to all of you fucking wazzocks who have been on these demonstrations. You've on demonstrations what you call freedom. You're against lockdowns. Listen, we all want to go back to normal. We all want this thing to be in the past. But doing the mass rallies, what you're doing, do you people, and you know, if you're not getting vaccinated, do you people even realize that you are, if anything, doing more to send us back towards another lockdown? Because God knows if anyone had COVID there yesterday, how far that's been spread. How many more might catch it, and how much more quicker case rises, that Kate will get more infections, and it will be ending up in a lockdown. Now, I'm not the best person to talk about the science behind vaccines. I'm not. I am in this, my sort of online community. I'm probably the least scientifically literate person in it. I'm often quite in awe of people that I'm often in chats with, whether it be Dave, who's seen in the chat, or Amanda, Jen, Matt, whoever it may be, people who've forgotten more about science than I'm ever going to know. But I do know this, that in a way, we're kind of in a race against time, really, with getting vaccines done. Because the longer it goes, the more and more likely we could get variants that the vaccines are not having any resistance to. So we are in a bit of a race against time in that respect. And you guys who are going on these things, and if you're propagating this anti-vax nonsense, I'm going to say this: doctors, nurses, the National Health Service is part of the solution. You lot are part of the fucking problem. And I want to make it clear, as my stream states, I stand with the National Health Service. I stand with doctors. I stand with nurses. I am behind getting that hashtag going. Got your back, NHS. I want to echo the thoughts of Dr. Samantha Bat-Rawden. People may know her. She's been on Good Morning Britain and so on in the past, but she's an ICU doctor. She says, I can't believe I'm tweeting this. As an ICU doctor who has given everything they have to trying to save lives, this makes me want to cry. And she goes on to quote Kate Sharabi, get their names, email them to me at the Nuremberg trial. Doctors and nurses stood trial, and they hung. She goes on to say, if you retweeted this, you can also tweet a message of support to NHS staff on the hashtag Got Your Back NHS. It's trending at the moment. I echo this completely. But words have failed me that we have gotten to this fucking point. I'm going to ask if anyone, I only see Mark and Dave have been in the chat. If anyone wants to join, please feel free to DM me on Twitter. I'm not putting the link in the chat. Sorry, I don't do that. Because anyone else has got anything to say about this, I'd like you to come in and say so. This, in a lot of ways, is just me venting today. I want to get this shit off my chest. there was a lot of things, of course, about hence why I didn't know that, but hence why I don't do it, Dave, because it happened to me once before. So yeah, cool. I'll send you the link, Dave. I hope you might have a bit of a hopefully you might have a bit more of a measured response to me. Hi, Nerdy. Yeah, now there was obviously one of the issues they were talking about was vaccine passports as well. I know that's a hot issue. Sure Dave might remember actually when he comes in a minute. We was on a stream on his channel a few months ago. We were a number of us in it, and we got into quite a hot debate over this issue. Hi, Dave.
Hello.
You got a take on what that shit yesterday? Because
it is.
I'm like, how the fuck have we got to this?
Have you read the thing I tweeted 10 minutes ago?
No. Hold on, let me put my headphones in, mate, a second, actually, because I'm on my... I'll go and find it.
No, it's okay. I'll tell you what it says. I'll tell you what it says vaguely. It's not... The specifics aren't important at this point.
I come in through okay?
Yes.
Cool. Sorry, I sometimes have had some issues with this. The
anti-vaxxers are... Or somebody... I'm not sure I can really speculate on who, because I don't know. I can't understand what's to gain from it. Well, I do from an economics perspective, I suppose. Somebody is using ad agencies to fund. Oh,
all right. Yeah, I see this now. Yeah.
Influencers to basically peddle their bullshit.
Okay. I'm gonna get this up on screen, Dave. Okay. So this is from BBC. This is some BBC News. Okay. So it's just the YouTubers who blew the whistle on the anti-vax plot. So, it says a mysterious marketing agency secretly offered to pay social media stars to spread disinformation about COVID vaccines. Plan failed when the influencers went public about the attempt to recruit them.
But how many didn't?
I wonder. I mean, so it's Micro Drotchman, a German YouTuber. I've never heard of him, but apparently he's got 1.5 million subscribers. So I've never heard of the guy. But he says that he normally ignores brands asking him to advertise their products. But sponsorship, so that's interesting.
I mean, I'm even more amused and irked to some degree, given what happened yesterday, that this is only a fucking fluff article on the BBC. This I had to dig to find this. I mean, who the hell? Who is funding this?
I don't know.
Because
I mean, it lends itself to all sorts of, conspiracy theories in its own right, isn't it?
To avoid to go down the conspiracy.
Yeah.
Because we know, for example, we do know that the Russians are using anything they can to destabilize.
Yeah, they like using internet disinformation and stuff. Yeah. Yes, but I mean, and this is the problem. This is part of the problem as well, that this feeds into a lot of I think maybe this feeds into a lot of the reason why we've got this sort of shit happening. And I mean, we've always had a sort of, we've always had, sort of a few lunatics, but we have never seen them come out on fucking mass like they have over the past week. And I think even a lot of people who would have never normally bought into this shit are buying into it now. And it's worrying.
The problem is you've got people that there are lines of autonomy. I will use as an I will. There is a member of our community.
Mm-hmm.
He's small, black and white, and relatively furry.
No, I have no idea what you're on about.
Who very much would come down on the side of freedom on this. Right? Now, he's intelligent. So he actually goes away and understands and talks to people to understand the issues. But the point is that you've only got to be down a little bit on the side of freedom for these arseholes to manipulate you into taking this step. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's this.
I mean, this is kind of the. I mean, it's like I said earlier. Look, we all want to go back to normal. We all want this to be over once and for all. But
it's like the opening up. You are completely right. We shouldn't have opened up. Not because we don't need to open up. We do, and we have to start it at some point. They're not wrong about that.
Yeah.
But as the numbers were rising, as with every other thing, we should have been numbers driven, which meant we should probably waited and they could have given a relatively firm date on this. I think about another 6 weeks.
Yeah, I mean,
we're not talking about the end of the year. We're not talking about next year. We're talking about a few more weeks because the numbers would have been in the right place to do that. And it means, again, the problem is I think at this point, the Conservative Party, I worry that it's the same people. That it's the same people that are forcing Boris Johnson's hand to go quickly, that are driving the anti-freedom protest. I don't like calling it a freedom protest because there's no fucking freedom to it. They're literally called as it currently stands. If it carries on the way it's going, we're going to be in lockdown again before the end of the year.
I think it's inevitable at this point. And as I said, they could, another sort of 6 weeks. And I'm not, I'm just saying they should have left the restrictions as they were. I'm not even saying we should have had another lockdown.
No, we shouldn't. We were managing.
But just really drive forward with the fucking vaccinations. And then, you might be able to open up properly. But now they've created an atmosphere where new variants could possibly be a thing. And the rate we are going, we already. It looks like, and please, this is preliminary results, so I don't want, but it looks like the AstraZeneca is only 10% effective on the beta version.
Beta variant, right? We'll see how that pans out in terms of numbers once you get more people infected. But if that's the case, this is what's going to keep happening. And if we can't get a handle on it from a social perspective in terms of stopping people getting it, we're not going to be able to keep up with the variants. And I think it's a relatively foregone conclusion now that certain countries around the world, naming no names, are going to remain having a population that's spitting out variants. And we need to be in a position to handle that.
See, I was joking. I was joking about a week ago that if we get a new variant in this country, we're going to call it the Boris variant. I think we should call it the Freedom variant now.
Did you see my tweet? Sorry, I apologize. I was talking about Twitter. I just thought it was funny. On what Boris should do about the Northern Ireland problem.
I didn't know.
And about I suggested that Boris should talk to the EU about coming up with some sort of shared market where we could trade with the EU. And this novel idea, we could call it the freedom market.
Yeah.
Oh. I worry about the word freedom going everywhere at the moment.
Yeah. I've always found it somewhat ironic that a lot of the people that seem to adopt the word freedom are the far right, and very, very people who, quite frankly, if they ever got into power, are going to start taking people's freedoms away from them.
Yeah,
you know. And I mean, as I said, you look at just a few of the names who were speaking at that thing yesterday in London. But then in Manchester, it got even worse. There was that actual testing centre that they tried to storm.
Yeah. What I don't understand at this point, which I find really weird, okay, is what they're actually protesting against.
Well, I found it very strange that on Monday, when they went out essentially saying they're protesting against lockdowns, and I'm like, well, the restrictions are over.
Yeah.
At least for the time being. But as I say these fuck nuggets, they keep doing things like this, and I'm going to say actually, look, hey, mass protests by the left or the right, quite frankly, right now are not going to fucking help. Any big event where there's lots of people together is not going to help the situation. So I'm not going to. I'm not just going to, I'm going to pull my own side over the coals a bit because, during one of the previous lockdowns, that the left all came out and forced about something else, and I was like, I support the issue you're behind, but I don't like. It may have been like Black Lives Matter or something, but I support the issue you're behind. But is it really the wisest thing to be holding mass demos in the middle of a pandemic?
I do worry that this is a part of a wider political. The number of people over the past 6 years I have seen that have gone from staunch Labour supporters to Tories.
Yeah.
Via a middle policy. Mostly it would be you watch staunch Labour supporters that would never vote. They couldn't imagine themselves voting for the Tories because they are against everything they believe in. And then Brexit comes up, they go towards UKIP, and then from UKIP they go to Tory. Well,
that's as I said. It's not. I mean, really, that's not even a middle ground. That's going.
No, it's not. It's not a middle ground. It's a policy. It's
a lot of people. I said I know a lot of Labour voters went to UKIP around a few years ago, and which is like going to the real, the real upper end of the spectrum in a way. I mean, I
don't think it was though. I don't think they saw it as that. That's the problem.
I don't think a lot of people really. I think initially when UKIP got big, because it was just seen as the single issue party in a sense around the European Union.
Yeah.
But I don't think really a lot of people really looked into what UKIP were.
No, I don't think they were. I mean, I had a conversation with one of the things I brought up with. I've forgotten his name now. Kendon Farr on Mathbase the other night was the fact that most people had no clue quite how that UKIP was a direct replacement for the BNP.
Yeah,
And it was. I spoke to like I said, I went and spoke to their candidates.
yeah.
Right? And over again, you talk to their candidates individually. And that is the prevalent attitude and what they're promising in their policies. Right? But they managed to do a fantastic job of keeping that out of the media.
See, now I know. I mean, in terms of, should we say, I mean, I know that UKIP did actually have a policy that they were not letting in known former BNP people.
Is the point?
Yeah, but they had. Well, they had a policy around it, but it was, but that doesn't mean, because what happened in 2010, the British National Party just collapsed. Now, UKIP, when as bad as they were never as fucking extreme as the people.
No, they were never publicly running. I agree with you, but
what it was is the reason they look a lot similar is more that the British National Party were hiding. Their leadership was really hiding just how extreme they were. I mean, even someone like as bad as I think Nigel Farage is. I mean, he's now. I don't think he's a closet Holocaust denier like Griffin was.
No, I think Farage was there. I think Farage is a. I think Farage is a money man.
Yeah,
I don't think he cares particularly.
But it really was. You started seeing people, didn't you, that started doing that when UKIP started getting big. Finally the media started doing some digging into some of their candidates, and you saw like the crazy shit some of them were spouting.
Yeah,
I mean, like that one, the woman who when we had some like floods or something, when we got some real heavy rain, and blamed that on said that was something to do with us allowing gay marriage, or something. It's just like this the kind of shit. I'm not being funny. You kind of almost expect to hear this from like Baptist preachers in the United States, sort of thing. Not.
I think we are so screwed, and I think this is what's got the anti-vax stuff at the moment is that we have these crazy people. I think we're always going to have these crazy people.
I haven't nerdy. No, I'll check it out later. Hey, perps. But
I
think
normally they're at the fringe of society.
Yeah,
and in the last, I don't even know how long, in the last X period of time, they've managed to pull in what would be otherwise reasonable people, and they're the people they're targeting. I think this is what's to blame for Trumpism. I think the only long-term solution is education, but I think that they're going to destroy education before we get there. I mean, the anti-vax thing shouldn't be an issue. This is basic math. But
I mean, I'm not being funny. This has been debunked so many times, and it keeps, and it just seems, and it's gotten. I think it's gotten worse than ever. And
how is it we have a populace that can't understand? The problem is, okay, I have half an answer to this question. I was going to say, how is it we don't have a populace that can deal with the fact that science changes, that as we learn new information, as we learn new things as we go, and also that we learn things in hindsight. We know there are things we could have done better back a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
But the fact that we know now we could have done things better doesn't mean we could have actually done things better at the time, because we might have done the best we had with the information we had.
Well, we often learn from we learn from mistakes and stuff, or theoretically we're supposed to anyway. At least that's the theory behind it.
I mean, I went back and looked at and I'm going to be vaguely complimentary of Boris at this point. What he was saying was a bit wrong, but when we first went into lockdown, I don't think we could have gone much earlier.
maybe a week or so.
I'm not even convinced we could have gone a week with the information they had. I don't think it was wrong to wait. I think it would have taken. It would have been very bold to go a week earlier. I think, especially given you are basically shutting down the entire economy at that point.
Yeah.
I think that. I mean, politicians don't like bold. I think you needed to see the numbers in your country going up in a way that people would accept. And I think if you'd gone earlier, I think you would have had protests.
I think Nerdy's begging to differ with you, Dave.
Which one? Personally,
do you want to link Nerdy? Let me know.
Oh, no. I totally agree with Nerdy. It's not like I think we couldn't have gone earlier. I just don't think the government had. I think the information they had. I agree with you. At the end of the day, don't forget, we and America, unfortunately, who we fucking listen to on virtually everything, we knew in the 70s. We modeled these stuff. That everything we are using now is stuff we modeled in the 60s and 70s. If we had listened, the problem you've got is you look at the way the SARS and the other one that I forgot the name of,
bird flu or swine flu.
Any of those. You look at how they went, and there is a possibility that we would have. That they didn't go how people expected.
Well, yeah,
spread internationally. As to whether or not we should have shut down, I still think you have to make a political decision at that point.
We had. I mean, we had cases in the UK of all this, but it was. It wasn't. It didn't spread anywhere like this. Like the way this one has.
And I think you've got to get the population to go with you. Did our government have a fully prepared pandemic response prior to the COVID? They used to have one. No, they didn't. Again, everything we had that planned for a pandemic was basically systematically taken apart. It was considered not value for money. I think it's another one of those things where, as humans, we were failing. For some reason, in going through maybe it was the Cold War, coming out of the Second World War and the period after that, we seem to have put a lot more stock in preparing.
Yeah.
In planning and preparing and having things in place. And then as I think I couldn't speculate on the course. I don't think, but it could be the end of the Cold War. I don't know. And at that point we start kind of deconstructing the things and I don't know.
I think the thing is, is that I think the thought has always been very much short-termism.
Yes.
I mean, it's why perhaps like we could have and should have been preparing for a lot of other things. Like we could be way ahead of where we actually are on like tackling climate change or something like that as well.
But it's climate change we've not tackled because of money.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to bang the drum too much on that one, but it is all money.
Yeah, and in a way, like you sort of said there, like they scrapped a lot of the plans because it was not seen as value for money. It is very short-termism in a lot of respects,
but I don't know how we get around that when you can't live through a parliament, a lifetime. I mean, the issue with the pandemic one is you're not going to get a pandemic in most people's, or you might get one pandemic in most people's lifetime. 100 years, you're not even going to get that, is it? It's 0.7 of a lifetime.
I mean, you bear in mind, this is obviously the biggest one really in 100 years.
It is,
well.
but in theory, it's going to get worse.
Yeah.
Um,
well, the thing is that, you know, this was something that was always sort of I'd heard for years that, look, you know, and you think that people might have listened to this, is that, look, one day there is going to be a big pandemic, and you know, it could, because it theoretically could spread around the world in days. It could, theoretically, with all the air travel and so on, it could spread a lot damn faster than anything beforehand, you know. And it did, you know. I mean, it's
Nerdy's not wrong. I do agree with Nerdy. It's not. I don't. I'm stuck on what you do when there are things. If you react to everything like it is the worst, you end up not being able to function. But I don't disagree with anything he's saying. If we the problem is people don't care.
But, I mean, the thing is,
I'd love to think at this point in time, I find it funny as fuck that people are talking about the fact, and it kind of bugs me, about the fact that people think we locked down for people's health.
Not really, no.
And spreading that message, I think, is wrong, because I think it makes it's something people can attack much more easily when they say, well, why shouldn't we get vaccinated? Because people are vaccinated. People get vaccinated. Well, you're vaccinated. You're much better protected than the people that aren't vaccinated. Why do you care? Right? Whereas if you actually look at the actual reasons we lock down, which is to save the NHS, to save the health system. It
was never going to stop the spread, but it could slow it to enough where our healthcare system can cope. That was the idea.
Yes.
And
highlight Nerdy's message, because it's probably going to be the most intelligent thing that gets said. This is why you have to have a system in place to gather data to enable you to make evidence-based decisions in a timely manner. I 100% agree. Unfortunately, the Tory party and the Conservative movement as a whole, both in this country and in the States, does not agree with that.
Right. I mean, I've said this before as well, that I think, it's going back to this whole quote unquote freedom shit again, that because there is such a such an emphasis on individual civil liberties, and don't get me wrong, like, individual civil liberties are very important to any healthy society, but I think it's almost gone to a point. It's going to a point where you kind of need people to kind of think and act a bit more collectively on it, to deal with something like this. And we just don't think that way for whatever reason.
I have strong opinions on that, but probably aren't relevant to this stream.
No, I mean,
we've been capitalism and patriotism.
Yeah,
blame for both. We have replaced our concern for our tribe, for our people, for our friends and family. We have been tricked into believing that companies are our friends, and that countries are worth defending, and which allows you to put ideas that would never make sense within your tribe, within your family, within your friends.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it was an interesting. Who was I listening to the other night? It was a stream I was listening to the other night, and they said in the States of the anti-vax movement, the people that will never get vaccinated, someone started going and asking them, have you actually spoken to your doctor, your primary care, your GP, about this? Have you asked their opinion and discussed it with them? And they didn't meet one person that had.
No.
All the information is coming from unqualified videos and
what's her bloody name? Because I responded to her on Twitter earlier. She's one of the other. I forgot her name. It's one of the other people who spoke. That right? Oh yeah, fucking Gillian McKeith. That fucking woo practitioner who's allegedly a doctor. You know. You know, from what I read of her, I think her doctorate is about as legitimate as Kent Hovind's one. But
again, there's probably in the US, most low-income people do not have a primary care doctor because they can't afford to see a doctor and go to the emergency room. I find that very funny. That's an entirely different conversation. I find the comparison of numbers between the US and UK when comparing medical things very fascinating because of that decision to not go to a doctor until things are life-threatening. Back to the thing. I can't believe so many people went out in London to protest against what is effectively the lockdowns when the lockdowns have ended. I can't believe we've got literally conspiracy nut jobs on the stage defending it.
Yeah.
And I don't understand what their end game is now. I don't understand what their end game is now, apart from potentially politically trying to keep a movement together to attack the government.
Yeah, you got. I mean, the thing is, you've got some. There's a weird bunch of different speakers there, though. I mean, in terms of, yeah, they are all in some level or another buy into bloody conspiracies.
The problem is we are in a time of conspiracies.
Yeah.
And some of them are not. I don't want to say some of them are true. I want to say some of them are not without merit.
Yeah, I think that sometimes there's a kernel of truth, but it gets embellished to a certain point where. And the thing I've always said is that generally, what I've found with the conspiracy theorists is that they often get into all these weird fucking conspiracy theories. Sometimes they miss what like genuine cover-ups that are, you know, right in front of their fucking eyes, you know. Like I always use something like Hillsborough disaster as a example, when there was a police cover-up that involved with that, and you know, I mean, effectively there was a conspiracy to sort of shift the blame about what happened there and everything, but the conspiracy theorists missed that altogether. You know, they missed that thing altogether.
But then you talk to some of them. I wish I had a gauge on quite how many. There seems to be a prevalent attitude that once you start accepting one conspiracy theory, everything seems to fall. And I just don't know whether that's the nut jobs I come into contact with.
I don't know that's necessarily true. Like, I mean, I've got a friend who's certainly believes in a few. I've got a couple of friends actually that certainly do believe in a few conspiracies, but I think, you know, I mean, they know some of them. I mean, they know things like flat Earth and whatever is complete nonsense, and like, you know, but you know, but so it's like the belief. But I mean, I do tend to find, particularly with the flat earthers, that generally they're definitely the ones that if they believe that, they'll pretty much believe anything.
Is flat Earth a gateway drug, or are they conspiracy nuts and then discover flat Earth?
I don't know. I mean, usually, I think from what I hear, that I think flat Earth's one of like the last ones they normally get into. So I don't think that's a gateway drug. But
the question is what is the gateway drug, or is it just lack of education?
Yeah. I think it's a lack of critical thinking skills.
Oh, that's what I'm blaming on education.
Yeah.
Rather, it's not that they might not have. They might have very wide and vast knowledge.
Yeah.
But they haven't learned to.
Yeah, because that's what I mean. It's rather than that. That's again, we've always said that's really the sort of skills that people should be taught when they're young. Because it's
Nerdy says nature and nurture.
Yeah.
The problem is, I don't think we can fix
argument.
nature. I don't think there's an ethical way to fix nature.
No. But this is what I mean. I think with this is that I think yesterday the events of the last week to me have definitely I think should be a wake up call to the this problem's are way more fucking serious than we realised, and I do think the fact that I think maybe because of the times we live in, that people are, because I think there's a lot of people that I know would never normally buy into such ridiculous stuff, who are really just seem to have bought the anti-vax thing and the lockdowns being out. Just they seem to have bought it hook, line, and sinker.
Yeah.
And you know, they're often quoting like either completely inaccurate sort of statistics, or they're forgetting the context behind them. Like, you know, like say,
well, that's the big one that gets me. It's the one that really annoys me, is the fact that they bang on about this, and you can explain it to them, but it doesn't go in. The fact that the stats do not show, you don't know whether or not people have died with COVID. Okay, because the stats don't show that.
Yeah.
And you explain to them the stats aren't meant to show that; they're meant to show trends. An individual dying of COVID is not really relevant to the stats. What's important is whether or not they had COVID, and whether or not this is an increasing thing on last week or next week. Okay, so it doesn't matter. They can get hit by a bus and have COVID. What matters is what the stats show week to week. And they're going, well, why aren't they doing autopsies today? Because it's not relevant to trying to make policy decisions. And it's much more expensive. If you want to do an autopsy to establish that COVID was the cause of death on every person that died of COVID, you need to triple our health budget.
Yeah.
You gather the information you need to do the job you need to do. And that's what our stats are to do that. And you can explain this to them over and over again, that that's what they're trying to show. And they just say, but that person could have died in a car crash, got hit by a bus, could have died of something else, and they just had COVID. And you go, yes, but it works the other way as well, that another person might have died of respiratory failure and never been tested for COVID, and they wouldn't show up in the stats.
I mean, the thing is as well is that I think it's going to get really difficult to start tracing the cases again, because now people are deleting that fucking app.
Yeah.
Because they're getting tired of getting bloody pings twice, and it's frustrating. I got that whilst I was on holiday, for fuck's sake. I was like to spend the last 6 days of it completely isolating, so it was a bit annoying, but you know. To me, the solution isn't to get rid of the app. That doesn't solve the fucking problem. Just make. And I've noticed this. I've been out like twice, I think, over the past couple of days. And I am seeing people are not fucking scanning into places at all.
No.
People are just not even if they've got the app, they're not fucking using it.
But again, this is. I mean, I got into a row with the black and white one. Because the app we have got is relatively useless in terms of
it's not. It ain't great.
Right. And the point is, I got into the conversation with it. It is the best we could have done without doing proper tracking.
Yeah.
Right. And the issue is they would never, the civil liberties, the freedom people would never have let us do proper tracking.
Yeah.
Yeah, we could have proper tracking. We could have an app that actually tracks your GPS, that we know where it is, that stores it in a central database, that actually tracks who you actually come close to within 5 or 6 meters. But it would never have been that level of tracking, that level of government tracking would never have been accepted. So we are restricted to what is unideal. We'll go with.
I got to admit, I do love some of the conspiracy theorists as well, who were like well, I'm not having that track and trace app because the government knows exactly everywhere. The people, they know exactly where I've been and whatever. And I still see them on Facebook checking into fucking places, and it's like, I mean, I will say, I've got one. I won't name him. I've got one friend who's sort of. I don't know. I don't want to misrepresent him because he hasn't necessarily said that the reason hasn't got the track and trace app is because for that kind of reason. But he just sort of said he doesn't he doesn't like it. He doesn't want to be. So I'm speculating on his reasons really, but he is a bit of a conspiracy theorist. But at least he just doesn't have a double standard about it. He's got rid of his Facebook and don't check himself into places or anything like that, either. So at least he hasn't got the complete,
It's they are. I'll tell you something after the stream. I don't want.
Yeah, well, to be honest, I might be bringing this to end in a few minutes, Dave. I don't unless anyone else wants to come in. But I'm probably going to wrap this up. I didn't know if anyone was going to jump in or not. But
no,
I think really I just need it. I think more just come on and it's a little bit cathartic just to get this shit off my chest, about all that shit yesterday.
It's ridiculous.
Because I just, how have we got? To me, it's like, how have we got from the point where we were all going outside at the start of this whole thing and applauding our care workers to yesterday, someone essentially making a comparison between doctors and nurses and Nazi war criminals and getting applauded for that shit in the middle of thousands of people
before a medical professional dies.
Yeah,
because for every movement you will have X number of people, and there will be absolute nut jobs in there that would just stab someone.
Yeah.
And they are being done by these.
And I'm not being funny with rhetoric like what. And she's a former health. That's the thing that gets me about Kate Shemarani. She's a former nurse.
Yeah.
I mean,
I would love to know how much she was paid to be there.
Well, she's I just think she's into a load of batshit crazy conspiracies anyway. But she, she's and this isn't the first time she's sort of used rhetoric like that either. I mean, she's basically, she's made like comparisons to like lockdown and the Holocaust and stuff. I mean, this is not the first time. I mean, God, YouTube's going to nuke this fucking stream, isn't it? But
No.
you know what I mean? It's like I mean, you can see why she was basically kicked out of the nursing profession.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm not being funny. She's spouting rhetoric like that in front of thousands of people. I got to believe there's at least one of a man in that crowd this day who is unhinged enough to probably go and try and go into a hospital with a bloody gun or something.
Yeah. I got that's gonna make me think. June says the Southern Baptist Convention of a few weeks ago is thought to be responsible for about 1,000 new cases. I'm intrigued actually why they aren't doing, haven't started doing COVID parties.
Oh, they were talking about that at the beginning of this, as they thought that was the best way to. Some of them were doing that, and it was because they thought it was like you'd like people when they have chicken pox bloody parties and whatever, you know.
Yeah. And the worst thing of everything that's going on now is that by the end of the year, we're all probably going to fucking catch it anyway because of the way it's spreading.
Fucking.
Yes. Should we end this with we stand for the NHS?
Yeah. And got your back end hashtag got your back NHS. Yeah, I think that's the best note to end this thing on, and I will say, I'm sure Dave will agree with me that thank you to all of our healthcare workers in this country for the job they've done, and healthcare workers around the world really who've been on the front lines of really dealing with this. And this, we know the stress that they're under and what they're because I'm not being funny. It's a difficult job at the best of times, but let alone during this. So
the normal people do realise the effort that they put in and the fucking trauma they've been through in the last 18 months. Please
use that hashtag on Twitter, by the way, once Nerdy's put up there, got your back NHS. That's I think how we'll end it. We totally support and thank all of our healthcare workers for the job they've done, and I think we'll leave it there because we'll leave it on a high. I think we'll leave it on a good note. I think. Okay, so you got anything coming up this week, Dave?
Only questions, hopefully.
Okay. Cool.
No other plans.
Might be doing media musings and rings later. I'm not sure yet. But I might be jumping on that. Other than that, I've not really got anything planned at the moment. So, thanks for coming on, Dave. Thanks to everyone in the chat. So see you guys later. Okay.
Bye.
Salute.